Andy. Great to
Hello.
have us back for the third episode of our podcast called Space. So it's how to make more space in your property or the property you're thinking about buying. In podcast one, we talked about making more space towards the back of your property. Then in podcast two, we talked about making more space going upwards into the loft of your property. And today we're going to talk about making use of the space in front of your property and to the side of your property. So, welcome to our finance director and our design director. Andy Meek has many years of architectural experience, which is very useful to us. And let's go. So, over to you, Andy. First of all, I wanted to ask you about the front garden because lots of people automatically think that they'll be able to get their car, have off-road parking, and that will increase the value of their house. And they might even ask the owner, "Oh, can I not do that? Why haven't you done that?" And the owner will say, "Oh, I just haven't got round to it." And that might not be necessarily true, might it? They might not be able to actually do it. So, can you tell us when you can, when you can't? Maybe let's start with when you can't.
Okay. Well, I suppose you can't if you haven't got enough space.
If you were going to have this as a house that would be resaleable or rentable, your average size, your regular size that you suggest would have to be what?
I would say you need to allow for a minimum of 5 by 2.5, 5 meters by 2.5 meters. And if possible, ideally, it wants to be about 5.5 meters by 3 meters, 3 meters wide.
Right. Okay, then. And are you allowed to do this by permitted development rights?
Generally, yes. So you just have to make sure that it's drained well. So if you use a porous surface like gravel, the water, rainwater, will just drain straight through the gravel and into the ground. The one thing with gravel, though, and other surfaces, especially when you're thinking about supporting the weight of a car, is that you need to provide a sturdy sub base so that the car doesn't just sink into the ground.
Okay, so what do you make that sturdy sub base of?
It's made from hardcore. So you dig down about 200 millimeters and you put down broken hardcore. So it's broken bricks, concrete, rocks, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
And that's whacked into place so it's well compacted,
Okay.
and that provides you with a decent base. And then you put your gravel over the top of that, and you've got a simple car parking space.
Okay. And what are your other options?
Other options are, if you want it to look a bit tidier, porous block paving. So
Hmm.
again, porous block paving would be set on that same sub base, which you then put what's called a sand blinding over the top of. So that's just a thin layer of sand that helps the pavers to sit well and to sit flat. And the gaps between the pavers allow the water to soak away.
Right. Okay. Any other options?
You can get porous asphalt, which
Right.
tarmac basically.
Uh-huh.
I think it's slightly more expensive,
Uh-huh. Does it look
and
better?
actually no, it doesn't look better than block pavers. Block pavers are probably the tidiest and best looking in terms of
Okay.
a
And is
domestic car parking space.
right. And is that more expensive than the gravel?
Yes.
Yes. Considerably?
Yeah, a fair bit.
A
Yes.
fair
I
bit.
mean,
Okay. So that's if you're going for more of a premium look.
that's right.
Yeah. How much does it cost to put in a parking space?
I think it's going to vary quite a bit. I mean, there are other costs to take into consideration,
Yeah.
as you know, so as well as the actual putting down of the parking space, you've got to think about if you need a dropped curb.
Okay.
So if you need to drive from the road across a pavement to get to your front garden's parking space,
Yep.
then there'll be a curb between the pavement and the road. Highways Agency need to come along and drop the curb so it's level with the road. That involves doing a bit of digging and a bit of, sort of construction work to take that out and to alter the surface of the pavement. They may say no, yeah, so you have to apply to the Highways Department. They
Yeah.
will come out and do a site inspection. They will look at the proximity of where you're driving across from the road onto your front garden, the proximity of that to any existing junctions and any other visibility obstructions. And they'll be able to say pretty much straight away, yes, this is fine, it's not a problem, or no, it's a no-go. You're too close to that junction, or the visibility displays are just not there.
Okay. So in general, everyone thinks corner houses are great, but actually that's something to be aware of. Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
Busier the worst, if you like. Yeah.
So going back to what you were saying about costs, there is a cost to that. They charge a fee for coming out and doing the inspection, and then they will also charge, of course, for doing the work. Or you have to use a highways approved contractor.
All right. So they might possibly be quite expensive.
Possibly in the region of £2,000 when you include the fee and the works.
Just for coming round and for dropping the curb.
And dropping the curb. But you see, it's not necessarily just dropping the curb because they also have to make changes to the surface of the pavement as well.
So anything else to think about parking before we move on to anything else?
We haven't talked about permitted development, have we? Some people might think that, they can just put a parking space in without getting any permissions. In actual fact, you may need to get planning permission, particularly if you live in a conservation area, that's going to be an issue.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't live in a conservation area, you have to make sure that you use permeable paving. If you don't use permeable paving, then you have to put in a load of other drainage on site to allow for the water to drain away naturally.
So should you check that in advance, or if you know now it needs to be drained, it needs to be permeable, because you've just told us, do we still need to ask for planning permission?
I mean, you can check. It's something you can check with the local planning department. And there may be, for some other reason, there might be permitted development rights might have been removed from your particular property. So it's always worth checking, and planning do generally know whether property has had its permitted development rights removed or not.
Right, okay.
There may be restricted covenant in the title deeds that prevents it.
Thank you for explaining to us about the parking. Right, I just wanted to ask you a couple of questions about extending to the side of your property. Now, can you do that under permitted development? Is it the same as extending to the back of your property?
Exactly the same. No, there are some side extensions that will be allowable under permitted development, but not all. It gets even more complex when you're talking about front extensions and any extension that extends beyond the front face of the property. But again, there are some exceptions to that rule. Because it gets so complex, and it's a fairly complex thing to describe in detail in this kind of a situation,
Yeah.
I would suggest that you're probably better to speak to an architect or an experienced architectural technician about it.
That's really, I think, all you can say at this point. So thank you for this podcast, Andy, and thank you for all of the three you've given us. I hope that everyone out there's found that interesting. And if you want to know more about working with us, then you know how to get in touch. And just look me up on LinkedIn or look Andy up, and we'll hopefully hear from some of you soon.